Page 5. If you haven't already done so, make sure you go through page 4 with me on the video number 4 that goes over page 4, because there's a lot of things that we're going to build on here in page 5. First thing I want you guys to notice is at the top of page 5 you have a big yellowish orangish box. I'm not sure what color it is, really orange, that goes over some important things for you. It talks about either treble clef or alto clef. If you play violin, it's going to say treble clef, and that's what that curly little thing at the beginning of all of your lines on page 5 are. If you play viola, it says alto clef. It kind of looks like a couple lines in a very curly 3. That just tells you this music is written for the viola. If you see a treble clef, it's saying this music is written for the violin, and that way you'll know what part to play if you're singing more than one. Some other things that you'll see, the time signature, where you see a 4 on top of a 4. We just call that 4/4. And it's 4/4 because there are 4 beats in a measure. If you go back and look at page number 4 or page number 5, both of those pages are full of lines that have 4 symbols in it, right? It's like quarter note, quarter note, quarter note, rest, or note, rest, note, rest. It always adds up to 4. That's what that means. And then finally the double bar. That just tells you the music is over. We're not going to go on to the next line. We're stopping there. Now, of course, after we stop, we'll go on to the next line in a moment. But we're saying it's like a musical period instead of a comma. We're going to stop there, maybe do it again, or go on to the last line. All right, let's start with number 6. If you remember from the last video, we always start by saying the letters or rest, and we start by putting our fingers on the notes themselves. Okay, now I'm looking at a viola book, so yours might look slightly different, but let's say and touch the notes or the symbols together. This is number 6. 1, 2, say, D, go. D, 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 rest. A, rest. D, D, A, D, 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 rest. Okay? Now that we have said it already, if you need to say it again, pause the video and practice it again on your own. But if you're ready for this, let's go to playing position one step at a time. Start by stepping your left foot forward. Knees are soft and relaxed. Left hand, that's this one right here, is holding the shoulder. The scroll should be pointing this way. You're going to go to Statue of Liberty, then flip it in towards you and come in for a safe landing on your shoulder. Not here. We don't want a violin beard or a viola beard over here on the side. You're too young for beards anyway. Okay? Instrument on your shoulder. Excuse me. Line number 6, jumping jacks. Find your D string. As a review, if you play violin, D string is this one. If you play viola, D string is this one. Eventually you should be able to do that without me reminding you. All right? Say it and play it at the same time. 1, 2, line 6, jumping jacks. D, 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 rest. Say it with me. A, rest. And D, D, switch. A, D, D, D. Is your instrument still where it's supposed to be, or has it started to droop? It's very important that every time you play, for as long as you play, your instrument stays here. It doesn't start to droop or fall. All right, if you need to do that again, run the video back and review it. Let's move on to 7, though. This is called Mix 'em Up because it jumps up and down a lot, as you can see with these notes. So, finger on measure number 1, say it as you tap it. 1, 2, mix 'em up, number 7, go. D, A, D, rest. A, D, A, rest. D, A, D, A, D, 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 rest. Now, the secret to playing this line well, I know you would think it takes a lot of concentration to play measure 2 and 3 and 1 really well, but the students who are playing this really well know exactly when to play those last 3 D notes in a row without switching to A. Okay? So, before we do number 7, I want you to try a little practice for me. So, we're going to play just D and A back and forth. We're just going to go back and forth, play each note one time, and then we switch, starting on D. 1, 2, D, then switch to A, go. D, switch, A, switch back, D, A, keep going, D, A, is your scroll up? D, A, do you have a triangle here? D, A, is your back tall? D, A, D, A, D, A, D, are you bored yet? A, D, A, there's a reason, D, I promise, A, D, A, okay, stop. Now you just did that, what, 30 times in a row. Now I want you to do it with your eyes closed. Okay? You can also open your eyes now, set your finger on the D string. But once you have your finger on your D string, close your eyes. And I want you to move from the D string to the A string by feeling it and not by looking at it. Okay? Here we go. D string, close your eyes, back and forth. 1, 2, ready, go, D. D, switch to A, switch back. D, switch back. And keep those eyes closed. Just feel it. Trust your feelings. You know which one is which. If you accidentally hit a string like the G string or the E string, that's okay. Just try to hit only one string at a time. A few more. D, A, D, A. Stop. All right. So if you can close your eyes and do it by feel, you can keep your eyes on the music and do it by feel because you're still not looking at your fingers, okay? So line number 7. Let's play just one measure at a time. So starting from the beginning, set, 7, D, A, D. 1, 2, ready, set, measure 1. D, switch, A, switch, D, rest. Now the next measure, starting on A. This is a different one. 1, 2, measure 2, start on A, go. A, D, A. Now measure 3, starting back on D, ready, go, and D, A, D, A, and measure 4, no A string at all. 1 and 2, measure 4, the very ending, go. D, 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 rest. All the way through from the beginning to the end. Ready? Keep your eyes on your music, not on your hands. 1, 2, standing tall, ready, D. D, A, D, rest. Say it with me. A, D, A, rest, and D, A, D, A, D, D, D. How'd you do? Hopefully you did pretty well. All right, line number 8. If you see that orange box above line number 8, it's talking about the repeat sign. When you see those 2 dots at the end, right before the double bar, that means you're going to play this line 2 times. So you're going to play from the beginning all the way to the end. You're going to jump back to the beginning and go all the way through it again. Okay? So, line number 8. Let's get our fingers ready. Tap on each note as you see it, and look, we've got 2 rests in a row in more than one place. All right? 1, 2, say the notes and tap them, go. D, D, rest, rest. A, rest, rest. D, rest. A, rest, D, A, D, rest, repeat, D, measure 1, D, D, rest. Ooh, my mistake. Ooh, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Let's start that over. Ready, measure 1. Here you go. And D, D, rest, rest. Measure 2. A, rest, rest. Measure 3. D, rest, A, rest, D, A, D, rest beginning. D, D, rest, rest. A, rest, rest. D, rest. A, rest. D, A, D, rest. Now I know my mistake kind of confused some of you guys, but you only should be saying it or playing it 2 times in a row. Sorry about that. Okay? So don't let the double rests confuse you. As long as you are saying the notes, and rests when you're resting and playing, I think this will be easy for you. All right, let's go to playing position. Set. Make sure you're always going through our steps when you're going to playing position. Make an L, thumb down on the side of that fingerboard, starting on D, but we only play 2 D notes in a row. Line 8, count carefully, and we do need to say them out loud. 1, 2, ready, say, and play, go. D, D, rest, rest. A, rest, rest. D, rest, A, rest, D, A, D. We're going to repeat rest again. D, D, rest, rest. A, rest, rest. D, rest, A, rest, D, A, D, rest. All right, if you need more help with that, and don't be ashamed if you do, run the video back and do that as many times with me as you need to. All right, on to our final line, Essential Elements Quiz. It says right in the counting before you play. We don't use the same system that the book uses to count things, so don't worry about that. All you need to do is just learn to count it and say it. So put your finger on the first note. Let's say it together. 1, 2, say, and tap, go. D, rest. A, rest. A, D, rest. A, D, rest, rest. D, A, D. Here comes the repeat sign, rest. Repeat. D, rest. A, rest. A, D, rest. A, D, rest, rest. D, A, D, rest. I had to say that really fast, but what I was saying was there's a repeat sign there. Don't forget to go back to the beginning. Okay? If you're ready, let's go to playing position and try it out. Okay? And don't be afraid of pausing the video and maybe trying it a few times before you do it with me. But if you're ready, let's go ahead. Thumb on the side of the fingerboard. Make sure those fingers aren't flying. They're tucked in like that. And your elbows are away from your body. Not like this, but also not like this. Nice and open. D string is first, then you rest. 1, 2, line 9. Ready, go. D, rest. A, rest. A, D, rest. A, D, rest, rest. D, A, D, rest. Repeat. D, rest. A, rest. Say it with me. A, D, rest. A, D, rest, rest. D, A, D. Rest. Do that as many times as you need to, but that's page 5.